So Xerox, before we get too nostalgic, they were the first in copiers, and they tried to go into the computer business, and 25 years and $2 billion later, Xerox was nowhere in computers. So they've still got a pretty long time horizon that they're looking at. So the point was that Xerox had been established and Xerox had been known as a particular, product or company. And that's what people knew them for, and that's what people went to them for. They didn't go to Xerox for computers. And arguably, what is Xerox used for now? I know them in printing and photocopiers.
It's basically photocopiers, as far as I know. So their point kind of holds with that.
Yeah, and so once a mind is made up, it is rarely ever changes. And I was thinking about this, like one personal brand example, I think is maybe Tim Ferriss. And Tim Ferriss has always, for me, has always been this like self-help, productivity, weird experiment type guy. And seeing him, or seemingly noticing him trying to maybe shift gears slightly over the last couple of years has been really interesting. And I think a lot of people probably still just go to him for exactly what he's known for. Very fascinating. But for me, he'll always be known as like the guy that does real productivity hacks and the weird experiments and things.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's definitely that way in my mind, for sure.
Yeah, exceptional nonetheless, but
Absolutely. I suppose this kind of goes into the idea that, okay, if you get burnt into the mind as something, well, then you need to create a new category for yourself that you can be number one in. And this is the thing that they describe as the law of category or positioning. So kind of flows out from those. It's like, okay, there's room if you think of what, and it's, I guess it's kind of a little bit of a thinking fast and slow thing. You've got like this kind of type 1 sort of, reaction to things, an instantaneous link. And so if you think photocopy is Xerox, then, or vacuum cleaner Hoover back in the day, probably when this was written, then you can't be a vacuum cleaner company and want to win the idea of vacuum cleaner. No, you need to actually change your category and position yourself as something else, because people don't necessarily buy the product. So in that instance, you may want to change your positioning to be the most high-tech vacuum cleaner, and then you're James Dyson. And so you can create further and further and further niches of positioning your product in different areas. And I think there's some real genius in this. And it flows into another law, the law of the ladder. But essentially, people buy products for numerous different reasons, and it's often not the case that it's related to cost. And it's also not the case that the price is generally related to cost. So if you're buying a Louis Vuitton handbag, you're paying, thousands more than the actual cost price of making that item. But you're not buying the physical bag, you're buying the status that comes with that bag.
I was going to say, this is where you get into that real space around like Rene Girard and memetics and tribes, and so people wanting to belong to a particular clique or a particular tribe, and which is driven by this idea of memetics, which was coined by Rene Girard, and that people just mimic one another. And you see these trends of mimicry almost give rise to different opportunities for new companies or new products or new things that come about.
Yeah, so I think like maybe clothing's such a fantastic example of this, because if you really just wanted a shirt, you can get a shirt for very, very cheap, you know. If you wanted the utilitarian function of a shirt, you can get them anywhere, but you can buy thousands of different brands and types and shirts, and some you want to buy them because they are expensive. Maybe you're buying a gift and it's important that you spend a certain amount of money just on something. So you might actually want the price to be high. That might be part of its value, that it's expensive. And the handbag can be part of that. Or it may be that the look makes you look like your favorite surfer. And so you're in that tribe, you're a surfy tribe. Or you may want something that's super functional, got lots of pockets because you want to be seen as handy. And it's all these kind of strange and wonderful things that go on in our heads that are different positions for the same item. And so the law of the ladder, which is kind of their next one, kind of talks about your position in the market against the leader, I suppose. And you should kind of adjust your strategy depending on your position in the market. So if you're the market leader, you want to act a certain way. But if you're second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth, it's generally not advised to try and look like the leader because they've already got that position. You actually want to make yourself look different to them and differentiate yourself so that you're having a new position and admitting that you're not the top dog, but saying and this is Seth Godin kind of stuff where he's like, you know, people like us do things like this. And so you say, well, if you want to go and buy the top brand of, you know, soup, well, that's for you. But if you care about the earth and you like organic soup, then you're like us and you should buy this soup because it's a little more exclusive. Not everyone's going to turn up with this one in the lunchroom. And when someone asks you about it, you can say, oh, well, this is organic soup. And that has whole new connotations. And there's this, you can divide a market according to them as many times as you want, hundreds, into tiny segments with tiny, tiny target markets.